Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Kevin's Barbecue Joints, and this one's great. It's with Tim Taylor from Pizzatola's Barbecue in Houston, Texas. I'm going to try to make this intro short and sweet because I want to get right into the interview. It is awesome. This place has been open for 87 years. Tim has an innate ability to tell these wonderful stories, and I'm a sucker for history, and we talk all about the history of this place, and you are going to be fascinated. The journey of this barbecue joint itself has been really incredible, and what's really intriguing is that during the pandemic, that forced them to take another look at the restaurant. If you had been there even 10 years ago or 5 years ago, this is a different restaurant. Still a lot of the favorites that Mr. and Mrs. Davis had at the beginning, but they've added about 20-30% of the menu to cater to a modern audience. They got an offset pit for all their meats that don't have bones on them. He talks about their old grandfathered in pits, which sound fantastic and killer and so interesting. I can't wait to see them. So there's a lot to this. It's also a sit down restaurant, so that's interesting. That it's not meat market style. It's not line up. You come in, sit down. So it's quite unique. So I'll let Tim tell the rest of the story as I pepper him with questions. But I can't thank him enough for taking the time. I really know that you're going to enjoy this thoroughly. Thank Darren Whitebeard Photography for connecting us. So sit back, relax, enjoy this episode. Stay safe, and visit your local barbecue joint.
Oh, it's getting better.
It's getting better though. I'm glad you this is the better part of the day, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time, and I'm glad, and thank Darren too for helping set this up, because this is something that I wanted to talk to you guys for a while, and we've had our little hits and misses, but this is finally happening. And how are you doing right now? How's your mindset right now? It's stress, but is it I'd like people to know, because this is real restaurant stuff.
This is real restaurant stuff.
Yeah, computer stuff.
Real restaurant stuff. When everything craters, when the whole world craters in one day, and it's the end of one month, beginning of another.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
but it's if you had met me 5 years ago, there'd be broken glass right now. But now I'm much calmer.
So you're becoming more zen. You have a quiet place you're going to somehow in your mind.
Old.
Too tired. I'm just too tired to break stuff.
I'm just too old.
So let's talk about the restaurant. And can you pronounce it so that way people know?
Sure. The pronunciation is Pizzatola's. So we have Pizzatola's written on the outside, and people come in all the time thinking it's a pizza parlor. It's an Italian
restaurant.
But it's Pizzatola's, which is the name, which is the last name of the second man to helm the ship here, was Jerry Pizzatola. He decided to change the name from Shepherd Drive Barbecue, which it had been at that point for about 50 years, to his last name. And he will even tell you that that's the biggest mistake that he ever made.
I even read a quote from him.
But he will say that. He will admit it. Yeah, he'll admit it. And it's too late now to go back. You can't, because it's been this name since say 84, 85. So what's that, 40 years down here?
It's almost 40 years.
Yeah. So I mean, it was 40 years one name, 40 years another name, give or take on both of them. So it is what we are.
And then how far away was the original restaurant, Shepherd's? Was that like a stone's throw away, or?
Well, the original building in 1935 was a block away from where we sit today. The building in which we sit today was built in 1959 and was built as Shepherd Drive Barbecue. Okay. And Shepherd Drive Barbecue operated in this building from 59 until 85. Original building was torn down to make way for the interstate.
The 10, right?
The I-10, yes.
that you could take from California all the way to Florida.
All the way to, from coast to coast.
It's actually,
and guess what? Half that time's in Texas, so you don't have to worry.
No, I've often thought that would be an interesting road trip to take.
Is it 900 miles in Texas on I-10? Yeah, 900.
Oh, that's a third almost.
It's a third. Yeah, really, it is about a third.
Yeah.
It really is about a third. Third of the time you'd be in Texas.
Wow. So that's interesting. So if people want to think in their minds how large Texas is, right there.
It's a third of the width of the United States.
Oh, that's crazy. That's it.
Don't
That's
quote
that's
me
an
on that.
interesting.
I think I'd lose on Jeopardy with that answer, but it's,
It makes no.
if you
To me, it
say
makes
it
sense. It works for
properly,
me.
yeah, if you say it with enough conviction, people will
Conviction.
believe it.
All it takes is conviction. So then, how did they move though? Because I'm curious about the process. How did they move the pits? They just yeah.
Brick by brick.
Okay.
Brick by brick. He dismantled them. Remember, he wasn't working with a whole lot of money. So he dismantled them and then reassembled it back here. And in fact, we've had the pits here redone twice, and we're getting ready to have one done a third time. And the guy upped the charge again. He goes, because I have to take each one of these bricks, clean them, clean all the mortar off, clean the brick to reinstall. And we go, yeah, you do.
Wow.
Yes, you have to, because it's part of the story of what we are, is that these are still the original pits.
Love that.
It's like an old house that has 20 coats of paint on it. It's still the original house, So we go through that extra expense. Actually, the price went up almost $1,800 just to clean those bricks and reuse them. It would be cheaper to buy new bricks.
Yeah.
But you can't do that.
Yeah, well, there's history in those bricks. There's a soul. Like I feel like
flavor in those bricks. There's
flavor,
in those bricks. Yeah,
I definitely feel that way.
You do it.
So then they started their business. It was a husband and a wife, right?
Husband and a wife. They started it. Interesting story. The way the story's always been told to me, and I believe it because I've heard it from their offspring. Miss Davis had an uncle in Jasper, Texas, which is deep East Texas, almost to Louisiana.
Okay.
That barbecued on the weekends behind a paint and varnish shop where he worked during the week as a stocker. Okay. Got that?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Where the Davises lived was about 2 blocks from the rail yard here.
Okay.
But Mr. Davis was a Pullman porter. And so he would be on the trains during the week as a porter, going back and forth, basically along what would become I-10. And so he wasn't home during the week. And Miss Davis just was raising 3 kids and didn't like that idea. And so she said, go on the weekends, drop off the train further east, go spend some time with my uncle. He'll teach you how to barbecue. Come on back here. We'll start selling barbecue on the weekends.
Oh, wow.
So the original barbecue was in the back of their home.
Okay.
They had converted a back room in the house to a restaurant, so to speak. And in there was the pit. And we have a picture of the house. And it was a white wood frame house. And there was a back door. And you can see the smokestack coming next to the back door.
Oh, that's so neat.
And he built a sort of a little wooden counter. And black sat on one side of the counter, white sat on the other side of the counter. And he barbecued with her and they served it.
Wow.
And so they started this restaurant in their house.
Amazing.
And it became wildly popular. He made a whole bunch of money. So when the federal government came in and took his land by eminent domain, he just moved down 2 blocks and bought this entire city block, which his family still owns the dirt. Best investment they ever. The best investment ever. Ever. So they're still involved in the restaurant. They still have a connection to the restaurant because it's their land. Mr. Davis's daughter, who inherited the building, the business, right, and the building, after mother died first, daddy died second, up until the time she died. And she died during COVID, but she'd come up in here and she'd walk around, hunched over and say, "How's my daddy's barbecue today?" Now, daddy had been dead 50 years, right? Yeah. No one knew who in the world she was, but she'd walk around like growing up in the dining room going like, "How's my daddy's barbecue?" Because she was a waitress here when her parents had the restaurant. So her daughter now, which is Mr. Davis's granddaughter, has this along with her brother and her sister's children. So she's technically our landlady.
Wow.
And she has a strong connection again to her grandfather's barbecue.
Oh, of course. So the original location was out of their house. It wasn't
their house.
Okay, I was confused. I thought that there was like their house, and then they went to a barbecue place, and that got no. It was eminent domain because it was all those homes that were taken.
I think we've screwed it to the wall because it was taken down so many times. But I can get you a picture. It was their home.
Okay,
they
I
lived
think
in the
that's
front
fascinating.
part of the
People will love
house.
to hear that. That's
Yeah,
so
they lived in the
fascinating.
front part of the house and operated the business out of the back. So Mr. Davis goes to Jasper enough times, learns the tricks of the trade, comes here.
Crazy.
Mrs. Davis, as I was told the story, now I met neither one of them, but she would actually work the pits along with him. And so she might be one of the early, if not the earliest female pit mistresses. And they worked it hard, and they built really a phenomenal, his business card had the saying, world's greatest barbecue man. And he considered himself the world's greatest. And there's a whole story about him, and we still have customers come in and love to tell the stories about, I remember growing up and Mr. Davis and all this kind of stuff. And they really were great to this neighborhood. He was sort of, the way I've been told the stories, was sort of like the neighborhood godfather, so to speak. If you wanted to do business in this neighborhood, you came to him.
Interesting.
He helped develop a lot of the housing in the neighborhood. They helped develop the church where Miss Davis was laid to rest. Mr. Davis, everybody will tell you this story about him. He was an avid he was a baseball fanatic.
Okay.
And every October, he would just shut the restaurant down, just lock the door, and he'd put a sign up, gone to the World Series. And he would go to all of the playoff games and the World Series, no matter where it was in the country. Flew first class, sat behind home plate, went, he had the wherewithal and the ability to do that. And he'd always take a customer with him. And he did that until the day he died. And everyone knew, you don't go there in October because he's not going to be there.
And this came from, he was working on a train to an idea from his wife, or prodding from his wife to keep him around.
Correct.
To this, and to us talking right now, that is fascinating.
Pretty amazing.
Really amazing. I love this.
And you have to remember the times in which we're talking. We're talking the 30s to the 80s. Yeah. Okay. And a lot takes place.
Oh yeah.
In Texas during that time. This was a segregated restaurant. It was, you think about all the things. He didn't have refrigeration here when he started because it wasn't really a thing. Yeah. He got his meat in, he cooked it, served it, and that was it. All these sort of things that we take for granted, a large part of his business, I find this the most fascinating. A large part of his business was to go. Now, we think nothing of to go today, right?
Yeah.
But he built a to-go business when there were no styrofoam containers.
Yeah, that's true.
No, nothing. And how it went up until right before COVID, people would still come in with a pot and go, I want barbecue to go up to here. And they'd point at some imaginary line. Or they'd come in with a mason jar and go, I need some sauce, or I need some. They would bring their own vessels, and it was we have one customer. He's a pretty prominent priest here in town, and he's about, I guess, mid to late 50s. And when he was growing up, his grandmother lived down the street, and his grandmother would hand him the pot and say, "Go up the street and get me some barbecue." And we had one old man, like I said, he died during COVID, and he had this same avocado green pot. And we tried, can't tell you how many times we tried to purchase the pot from him or buy him a new set of pot, whatever he wanted, just so we could have the pot. And he said, no, this was my mother's, and my mother used to send me down here. And this is how I want it because this is how I know it. So in a way, he developed this unusual to-go business. And what was interesting was this was a predominantly Black neighborhood back then, but a sort of middle-class Black neighborhood. These people would go to work. A lot of them worked taking care of the big homes in River Oaks for the oil people. And they would bring food. And the people for whom they worked would go, man, that smells great. Where did you get that? So he started having these people come here to eat, but the dining room was segregated, so they couldn't come in. So they'd go around the back door, which is where he served the white patrons out back, and they ate out back, while the dining room up front was for his.
Wow.
It was like reverse segregation.
Yeah. In a way. It's exactly how I was going to say that.
Yeah. And so this place is a lot more than just, sliced
it's not
brisket.
just it's not just food. It's not
food. It's not food.
It's history. It's visceral.
Visceral is a great word. Visceral is a great word to describe sort of what we are. So one of the hardest things we have to convey is that to our customers. Now we have multi-generation customers. We have a picture. Someone asked me about the picture yesterday. It's a little boy who's 18 months old, sitting in a high chair here, gnawing on a rib.
Okay.
He was brought in by his grandfather, who was a very regular customer here. And the other day, about 2 weeks ago, this young man pulls up in a big Ford F-150 truck, jumps out, girl jumps out, 19 years old, right? Comes on in, and I said, where do you want to sit? He goes, I want to sit next to my picture and show my girlfriend me eating a rib.
Oh.
You sit here and you go, that kind of stuff you can't quantify.
No.
That a grandfather brings in his grandson, who's now bringing in his girlfriend. And when this boy has a child, he's going to come in and want to show his child that picture. And we have so many people, so many guys come in who are in their 30s and 40s and go, I used to come here with my grandfather. Where's our picture? Where's this?
Oh.
And so that's the kind of thing that's hard to quantify. We serve we don't just serve barbecue. Now, the barbecue we serve is pretty damn good, or doesn't matter what your history is.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be in business. Okay. You'd be a museum at that point.
Yeah.
We're a functioning, thriving restaurant. So we've always got to be changing with how the barbecue market world changes, but don't change too much.
No way.
Because when old Sam comes in, he wants it to be like he remembered back in the 50s. You see,
he will be very upset.
He has this
picture. It's a connection. It's
a connection. It's a connection in a city with very few connections.
Yeah, left. I'm sure.
Houston is a city where tear it down, build it newer, taller, shinier. So there's very little left of what we are. So we have to really walk this tightrope about staying relevant and staying historical.
Yeah, that's a tough.
Not really easy. That's like you take a movie theater that's been around since the 40s, and there's one or two in town that can't compete with a multiplex because you just can't put enough bodies in it, right? But the nostalgia is there, so somehow you find a way to stay open. So we've got to honor our past, feed the nostalgia, but stay relevant enough to a kid who's only 25 years old who has no clue about any of this.
Yeah, so who's just jumping into the barbecue world and learning about it and excited about trying that's correct. It's a tightrope. It is.
It's really a tightrope to stay relevant. It's very difficult.
And I want to discuss what you guys offer and how you do that. But how did you get involved? How did you guys get involved? I read it online, but I'd like to hear it from you.
How did I get here?
That pause was a very important pause.
How did I get here?
Yeah, how did you get in front of me?
Which time? Honestly, I was past this place for years on my way home and had no idea what it was. Actually, I thought it was a catering company because I would pass by in the evenings and the metal grates would be closed and padlocked. I didn't know. I thought they punched out some food in the morning and went home.
Like a commissary kitchen or something.
Like a commissary kitchen, and paint was peeling on the outside. It was just terrible. So I had no connection to it whatsoever. I was in partners with a pretty well-known restaurateur here in town, and I did some consulting on the side. And this restaurateur is a distant cousin of Jerry Pizzatola.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So Jerry was coming to a point in his life where he was like, I've got to go left or leave type of deal. And I can't leave because I'm sort of running it out of a shoebox. Mm-hmm. So I need this thing packaged and bundled, either find somebody to come in or for me to be able to sell it. Mm-hmm. So he called his cousin and said, man, do you know of somebody who can consult, come in and do this? And he goes, yeah, I know a guy. I'll call you back. So I got the call that night. I said, yeah, I'll love doing that. I'm raising a house full of 4 kids. You know, every extra penny helps. So I came over and met the guy, and I'm like, man, it was like 3:30 in the afternoon, and the chairs on one half of there's only one room. The chairs on one half were put up, and there was a yellow nylon rope going across. And I said, what's wrong? Oh, well, we don't use this half at night, so we don't want people to sit there. So we just put a yellow rope up and put the chairs on the tables. If you want to eat, you can eat over here. So I said, well, okay.
Interesting.
I said, I'd like some of the barbecue chicken. Oh, it's all gone. We sold it at lunch. Okay. Like a baked potato. We sold those at lunch too. We don't have any. Well, can I have some banana pudding? No, we sold out of that too. So I said, why are you open? You know, so I got out my cell phone. I called Jerry. I went, you know, I'm trying to eat in your restaurant and there's no food. Why are you here? You know, what? Yeah. Wow, we made enough today. I'm home drinking. And you know, it was just this real laissez-faire
very
attitude. So I said, okay, I'll help you. So I came in, started trying to put some loose systems in, just trying to, you know, what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
So I was doing that for about 4 months, and I had a 6-month contract. And Jerry called me one day. He goes, look, I'm just going to pay you out your 6 months. You know, we're good. And I figured I was asking too many questions at that point. Yeah. So I said, not a big deal. He goes, I found an operating partner. I'm going to make him an offer. We're all fine. I said, okay. He goes, do you want to know who it is? I said, no, not really. He goes, well, it's you, damn it. So I went, it's me? He goes, yeah. So I was like, okay. So there we were. So I didn't know. I had come from many years in the restaurant business where everything's cooked to order. You know, you make something, you sell it, you need another chicken breast, you grill it, you sell it. All of a sudden to a barbecue world, which is you think 2 days in advance, what am I going to need? Because you have to start cooking it the day before in order to serve it. Fingers crossed, we sell it all so we don't have expensive trash, or we have enough to where we don't tell customers we don't have it and you lose a sale. So it was a completely different mentality.
Oh, yeah.
That was the hardest thing to learn. I could learn how long does a brisket stay on? What's this? What's that? What's this cut of meat? You know, all those little technical things, although very complicated. I'm not trying to minimize them, but those could be taught. The hard thing to teach was the forecasting. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Where's the sweet spot? You know, always trying to define the sweet spot.
And the time of year, the day of the week, it's all
everything. And cumulatively, I'd say I'm close to 20 years here doing that, and it's still a crapshoot.
Yeah.
You know, yesterday, nobody. Today, no tables open. You know, and so you're going like, well, how do you make those adjustments? How do you do all that? So that's always been the hard thing. The easy thing is taking care of a customer, making people happy, telling yourself to allow the guys who are in the kitchen working the pits to do what they do because they're far better at it than I am. And it's really learning all that.
Well, then you got involved 20 years ago.
So I got involved, and then a series of events in my life. A few years ago, I walked away and said, I'm done. I'm finished. Jerry sort of had some health challenges, so he couldn't really work anymore. So he phased himself out, and the business came up for sale. And a very good friend of mine purchased it, bless his heart, 2 months before COVID lockdowns.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, go figure.
Yeah, I know. So that's Willie Madden, is that?
Willie Madden.
Okay.
So Willie purchases it, and he calls me and he goes, got any ideas how to figure out COVID? I was like, no, in 2 weeks, we're all going back to work. It's all going to be great, right?
Yeah.
But well, during those 2 weeks, we both realized this is what
Change it.
in the business at that point had already been into a natural decline. And so it was important for the business's life, health, to ramp up sales, change things that had been really left unattended for about a year and a half.
Okay.
And then also tried to navigate COVID. So I told him, I said, well, there's no playbook. We'll just make it up. So I agreed to come help Willie for 6 months. And unfortunately, during that time, he passed away.
Oh.
So here I am again. And so 2.5 years ago, I said I'd come help for about 6 months. And I lied. And so fortunately, we survived COVID. We were very lucky.
Was it obviously heavy on to go?
Well, for us, about 80% of our business model was that 80% of our sales were done before we opened. We were heavily into corporate catering, heavily. Oh. Well, overnight, that light switch got turned off. It was gone. So it forced us to redo a business model. So we had to get into the to-go. We have a very small dining room. We could not effectively do the 6 feet circumference around each table. What gave us 5 tables. So
that wouldn't make sense. Yeah.
Well, we technically did it, and then we seated whoever came in wherever the hell they wanted to seat, because you weren't going to turn down any money.
Yeah.
You had to do delivery partnerships and all that kind of stuff that we didn't want to do, but you had to do. As life started to be breathed back into everything, our dining room came up. Now, the flip side, the positive is we had a lot of time on our hands, and we were in a position where we had to make some real changes in order to be relevant. And so we made those changes. We made an investment in the business during those times to make those changes to get us to where we are today.
In anticipation of,
And anticipate, blow your wad and hope you live, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bet. It is a gamble.
It's a bet. And so that's what we did. So we brought in new pit masters. We changed the method of cooking brisket here, because we were always getting browbeaten on our brisket wasn't up to par with what everything else we did. So we said, well, let's take that opportunity to change it. Let's look at everything we prepare. All of our desserts were done outhouse. We moved it all in-house. Okay. We moved it in-house. A, we had time. B, we had the labor. C, why not?
Yeah.
So it forced us to do that. We revamped our menu dramatically, added about 30% of the menu became new items.
Wow.
So we weren't being judged on things we would have never served here. Okay. We were strictly meat and potato. So we expanded on that. We added barbecue brunch. So we did all these kind of things because out of necessity, and with the understanding that how do we become relevant to the 30 and under crowd?
Yeah.
That gamble has paid off.
Funny how something like a pandemic would shift that.
I will tell you this, had it not been for that, I think we would have died a very slow death. It was that, okay, let's pick a new color scheme for the outside. Let's redesign the logo. Let's update and refresh in the dining room. So all these things that we never did before, because you sort of didn't have to, people still came in.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, when they weren't coming in, and you looked around and go, that changed this, changed that, changed the other thing. So we worked really hard during the pandemic, looking down the road. Again, it could have been a total waste of time, money, and the jury may still be out. We don't know, but it was the course that we decided to take.
Yeah, it seems like it was to me, at least right now, it seems like a smart move. Did you get, because the offset
become relevant again?
I think you have, and also too, it adds excitement. It adds something different for people that maybe had come 15 years ago.
Started social media, which we didn't have. Okay, you understand that kind of stuff.
Because I'd always heard your name, but I didn't know a whole lot about you, and I haven't had a chance to visit since You know,
It's okay.
I've been helping my mom through a number of surgeries and stuff. So
I understand.
that's why. But it's interesting. Did you get the offset smoker, or was that during?
During, correct.
So then you had to fine tune
And we
that.
had to figure out how to learn that.
Yeah,
because we've never done that before.
Because could you describe your pits, your original pits that you still have?
Sure, they are. Think of a refrigerator box, a box that a refrigerator comes in, cardboard box, on its side.
Okay.
All made of brick with big stainless steel lids that open up and one level of grates. And you build a fire at one end and you go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally a brick rectangle. It's a triple wall pit. It has a wall of brick, air gap, wall of brick, air gap, wall of brick.
Oh, interesting.
So it is very cold to the touch on the exterior. No mechanization to raise grates up or down. They are static. It's just natural flow of air. There's no dampers, nothing you can open or close to regulate airflow. No thermometers, no temperature control. When I tell you that it is, think of the 1930s, a brick rectangle with a big steel top with, if I say window sash weights, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Along pieces of iron, right? They have window sash weights on a pulley, and you lift them up, and that's what holds them up or holds them down. I mean, that's how sophisticated it is.
Wow.
And
you have two of those, right?
We have two of them, and they're about, I would say, 12 feet long by 4.5 feet wide.
Wow.
And that's it. And they are on the ground. Build a fire on one end that's sticking out in the kitchen. It's about as primitive.
It sounds old school. They're very old school.
It is, but there's a flavor that's imparted in that pit. Also helps determine our method of cooking. We cook at a high heat pretty rapidly. Everything that gets cooked on those pits, now the only thing we cook on those pits is anything that has a bone. Okay. Anything without a bone is cooked on the offset. So if we take chicken or ribs, we throw them right on top of the flame, and they sear for 20 minutes on each side, and then they are slow walked certain distance with pitchforks until they sit at the back of the pit, and then they'll sit back there for an hour on the cold end. And our pit temperature ranges from the hot side at maybe 450, 500 degrees to the cold side, which is maybe 125 degrees.
Oh, interesting.
So when they sit on the back of the pit, all they're doing is just absorbing smoke. That's all it is just absorbing as much smoke as it can. So you get a completely different flavor. The only seasonings we use are table salt and table pepper. That's it. But because it's such a quick cook, someone's eyes have to be on it the entire time. Yeah, it's that quick.
Could ruin your food pretty quick if you
correct. It will ruin your food. Now, the briskets or butts or anything else like that, turkey breast, anything boneless, is cooked on the offset. And that's the flip side of the coin. That's 2 1/4 standard.
Yeah,
a solid temperature, never deviates. Someone is there, every 30 minutes checking it, making sure everything stays static. So it's it's all about rotation, whereas inside it's about get it.
So do you have a pit room that is in, or did you put it out back, or is it a different location?
The offset,
yeah.
The offset is in a different room, in an actual pit room.
It's not in the kitchen.
The big pits are in the middle of the kitchen. They are just right there.
That's crazy. I've talked to a couple of people that have said it gets really hot, and
it's really hot. They catch on fire because there's so much grease and there's such a high heat that they will catch fire. And we have fire hoses, and we've got to put out fires.
Yeah.
And we've had like one years ago, and I forget, we were packed. We had a line out the door.
Oh no.
And these firemen come running in. And people are eating, go in the kitchen, they put the fire out. They were eating at a restaurant next door and saw the roof on fire because the fire had gone through the flue, sort of like a chimney flue, and it caught the roof on fire. We never skipped a beat in here. People kept eating. We kept serving.
I love.
Okay, they're done. Okay, bye. We'll bring y'all barbecue tomorrow. Okay.
Oh, that is so
Went to the
crazy.
fire station down the road, brought it to them. So I
Uh,
mean, it's a very interesting,
but it needs to
interesting
be, it's something that people need to pay attention to. It has to be
all the day
watched.
long.
It's
And we really watch that. Yes, we watch
yeah.
that pretty intently.
Do you cook sides and things on those pits?
Everything. We bake all of our desserts on those pits.
That's interesting.
We
It makes
cook,
sense. It's like a giant oven.
it's just like a giant oven. We make all of our sides on that pit. We bake bread on that pit.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
The only cooking equipment we have is we have a stock pot burner in the pits. That's it.
That is,
We have
I love
we
that.
have a stock pot burner and the pits. And if you can't do it on, we actually have a little induction hot plate that we purchased, which is where we make the custard for the banana pudding.
Okay.
And that's it.
Wow, that's amazing. What was the menu when he was serving at his house? It was probably the menu was slim, right?
It was brisket, chicken, ribs and sausage, beans, potato salad, and coleslaw. And that was it. We still use the same family to do our sausage that started with Mr. Davis.
Oh,
They're on their third generation, and the guy delivered it today, and the third generation guy is 71. And
oh my
he's
gosh.
like, when I go, he goes, I
We
can't.
need to get another person.
They make no
What they
promise.
mean?
But they're third generation, and he drives all the way from Cistern, Texas, which is out west of Schulenburg.
Oh my gosh.
He's on the road 2.5 hours to get here with sausage.
Wow.
But they have a big operation.
Yeah.
So, but it's just like it always was.
So are most of the recipes from the original set, not the new things that you've brought on, how are they pretty much the same, or are the people coming in saying, okay, this tastes the same, I'm remembering this? Or you must have tweaked some stuff.
Oh yes. Now the brisket, let's start with the ribs, because we're really known as a rib house.
Okay.
The ribs are cooked the same way that they were when Mr. Davis started his house. Now we use a different cut. When Mr. Davis did it, he served a full-bodied rib. Mm-hmm. We served St. Louis cut rib. That change was made in about 1985, 86. And that was strictly prompted by the customer mix changing. Okay. Mm-hmm. Our customer didn't want to mess with that whole top of the rib. Okay. Chicken is still done the same exact way that it was done in Jasper, Texas. Still done that way. The ribs are still cooked in the same method. It's just a different cut. The sausage is still the same.
Yeah.
The brisket is done differently, obviously, now because we do an offset. The sides, the side recipe for the beans and the potato salad were actually Jerry Pizzatola's mother's recipes. So those were changed. The dessert recipes began as Jerry Pizzatola. Jerry Pizzatola's mother used to make the desserts at her house, which was about 45 minutes away, and drive them here every morning.
Wow.
And she went into a nursing home, and that had to stop.
Yeah.
So people here took it over for a while. And then when Jerry became less hands-on, that went to a bakery. And so we brought it in-house. But no, so many things are still the sauce. Interestingly enough, the sauce is still the original Mr. Davis sauce. Okay. And we catch a lot of crap about the sauce. It's a thin, watery sauce. And I'm going in my wallet because I'm going to show you. I still keep it in my wallet because I make it. This is the sauce recipe.
Oh, I love
it. On a tattered piece of paper. It's so cryptic that I could give everybody a copy and they'd have no idea. But that's still, now I don't ever take this out other than to show somebody, but we still make the sauce according to Mr. Davis's recipe. So there are a lot of things that have been around for 87 years.
So was that something that people, because it's a different type of sauce than they're used to, and is that why they're complaining?
You either love it or you hate it. Yeah. Okay. We'll have people here and go, thank God the sauce is still the same. Mm-hmm. Now we do a secondary sauce now, which is very different from the original sauce. which I prefer actually more. But we do get beaten up online, oh, their sauce is terrible. It's so thin, it's watery. And then on the other flip side, it's like, you have to understand the history and why that's a sauce from the 30s when you really didn't have sauce and all this kind of stuff. The purist that doesn't need sauce, that kind of stuff. So we do hold on to a lot of those touchstones, maybe is the word.
That's a good way to put it.
But it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I know. You always expect to get complaints from time to time because
you're going to get it, and you want to go, idiot.
Yeah,
go read a history book or something.
No, there's a place that used to be open for 85 years over in Burbank near here, and the sauce was a thin. It was Oklahoma style, which I don't even know what Oklahoma style means, but it was so bizarre. I loved it because my parents loved it, and we brought it. And you just, but it was. Most people were like, "This isn't." It was like strange. It was different, but I loved it because
and that's the case here.
Nostalgic,
nostalgic. So I mean, we deal with those kind of things, but we feel as though, in a weird way, we're caretakers with a lot of pressure on our back. It's got to go right. You can't bottle nostalgia.
No,
you can't, and you can't you can't deposit nostalgia in the bank. So you have to make the sale. We'll have customers that we served for 20, 30 years, like at a law firm. And then all of a sudden you won't get any business from them anymore. And you'll call and go, well, he retired, and you go, now who do I have to woo? So you're always having to do that. You can't rest on your laurels. For a long time, I used to get frustrated. We'd get mentioned in the paper a lot. And it was always, oldest barbecue restaurant in the city, second oldest restaurant in the city. I'm like, why aren't they talking about the food? Because that's not the story they wanted to write. There's no, hot new chef full of tattoos in the kitchen putting out something,
Yeah, no,
and that's not to demean anyone.
No, but it's not, and it's also not the new. Newspapers are always looking for the new, and we're the old. So that's.
I got a call today from the Discovery Channel, and it was a producer. They're doing a story on a true crime murder that happened here 35 years ago in Houston area, and they're sort of doing a follow up because someone wrote a book, and they said, we want to interview you in a nostalgic, historic little Houston institution. And so we're it. So they're gonna come film. So I told her, I said, doesn't sound like this is about the food. No, she goes, it's not. It's about. I was like, well, so I guess you want to just use this as a yeah, sort of. We'll put you in the closing credits. I said, which no one reads, but that's okay. Come on, it'll be fun.
It'll be something different.
Something different. Come on next Friday. Sit down.
That's
it'll lead to something. It'll lead to something. Someone will write something. It'll be good on social media.
And then it'll give you something to talk about. It's never.
That's all it is.
Discovery Channel, and they can hear Discovery Channel and not even know that it was.
Did you see the barbecue? They're going to be on the Discovery Channel. Yes, we are. Our chair and our table and the shitty old paneling. So that's that's it. That's fine.
You had mentioned new things. Could we talk about the new things that you've instituted?
First of all, we added it's called the Ultimate Chef Salad. Would you say a normal chef salad would have what? Turkey, ham, and whatever else. Well, this is sliced brisket, smoked turkey, and sausage. And people love that. It's a way to eat barbecue and go home and say, honey, I had a salad for lunch. Okay. That's one. Number two is we do a frito pie, which we had never done. And, we might sell 10 or 12 of those a day, which is a lot.
Yeah. They're filling.
That's very filling. We do now a hand ground brisket burger, and that's new and selling a ton of those. A smoked brisket burger. I love them. Now, it's just not a burger between two. They made a special habanero barbecue sauce to go with it. Chipotle mayo. It's on a artisan challah bun that's made just for us. So it's not a burger. It was a way to take something which was going in the trash, basically the trimmings of the brisket, and turn it into something now that restaurant critic for the Chronicle does a Friday burger deal and said, that she was blown away with this type of burger. Now, a lot of people serve a brisket burger, but it was taken to a different level.
But it's a good option for people that aren't into barbecue.
Correct. That's correct. We do barbecue brunch on a Saturday, which we bake on the pits, a jalapeno cheddar biscuit, like a big old cat head biscuit.
Yeah, I love that. I love the cat heads.
Well, I tell you sort of the size, right? But everything about that. It's stuffed with chopped brisket, a fried egg, is served with the potatoes, like new potatoes that are smoked on the pit, and some fruit. Well, that's flying out of here like
I love that.
crazy. The enchiladas, smoked brisket enchiladas that we do on a Friday. Again, using trim from brisket, they're phenomenal. They are phenomenal. We sell those by the tray now. Those have been extremely popular. They're very popular, believe it or not, when guys are going to their ranch in South Texas to hunt for the weekend. They'll come in and buy a whole tray, 18 or 24 enchiladas. They'll take them and they can put them on their barbecue pit out there if they're out in the nowhere or something, and just let them heat up. And those things are very, very popular. Queso, believe it or not, I was like, who the hell's going to come barbecue restaurant and eat queso? It's crazy how much queso we sell. Queso, really? Brisket, and homemade chips. So all those kind of things that someone of my age was going like, oh, you can't make, I'm the biggest culprit of you can't change, then I have to go tell myself, no, you have to change. But these are some new items that are running about 20% of our menu mix and our item sales. We're still going to be brisket and ribs. I mean, that's why you're still going to sell beans and potato salad. We introduced Texas caviar as sort of a healthy side alternative, roasted corn topped with crema and cojita cheese. We introduced them going, and now they're just churning and churning and churning. But you're still going to sell potato salad and beans. That's just, people come in with, that's what I'm gonna have. But surprisingly, the other items are moving up the chain.
And you have what, 3 desserts you make in house?
We have the original 3 were homemade banana pudding, which is still our #1 selling dessert. A Texas chocolate sheet cake,
which is
cola cake, whatever you want to call it, and a coconut pineapple cake. Now the kitchen took and completely elevated the coconut pineapple cake to where the sponge cake is soaked in real coconut extract. Then the pineapple, they're taking fresh pineapples, pureeing. That's becoming the filling as opposed to a can of crushed Dole pineapple. So all those sort of things. Homemade cheesecake. The Texas pecan pie was probably my favorite. We make a miniature pie, maybe 5 inches, across. The dough is made here. The pie filling is here. It has a little bit of bourbon in it, and then it's smoked on the pit. So you get this smokiness. The whipped cream has a little bourbon in it. So again, we were getting the pecan pies farmed out to a local commissary, basically, to now something, just a completely different. So even though it's still pecan pie on the menu, it's at now all of this, everything I'm talking about. The gentleman his kitchen is Udell Hernandez, and he is responsible for all of this. I can sit here and we can talk about it and say how great and wonderful it is, but he is the enchilada, he is the biscuit, he is all the desserts, he is why the items coming off the pit are so much better. He is the burger. He is the new sides. He is all of that. Another example, we didn't make any of our salad dressings here. Now all of our salad dressings are made here. Again, that's Udell bringing that level of professionalism.
That's great to have.
To the kitchen. So where before you would just look and say, man, that guy working the pit is this or that. Well, now it's not just the center of the plate, it's the whole plate that gets touched. And that is the difference.
Okay. And that's important. And that's really
important to know.
That's really important to know.
That's really important to know that we were here prior to Udell, and now we're here with Udell. That the whole thing has bumped up because of that.
Wow.
So, it's like a new engine on an old train.
Yeah. Did he come around before COVID or right?
No, it was part of this whole what do we do now type of thing.
And for people to know, it's not line up meat market style. You sit down.
No, right? It's full table service. You come in, you're greeted by someone, sits you, hands you a menu. You're given a cloth napkin with your hard silverware, real silverware. Your order is taken. You can order an appetizer, get that. And appetizers run about 25% of our total sales.
Wow.
You get that. If you have anything with a bone, if you have ribs or chicken, you're then brought at the end of your meal a steaming, moist, hot towel.
I love that.
To wipe your face and wipe up. Okay. Now you talk about that. That's 18, 20 cents each to hit a table. So, we have built-in costs because of our table service. Okay. People will come in and go like, there's no line here. Well, no, there's not, but a dining room is full of people waiting that if you translated that to a line, the line would be outside and down to the corner.
Yeah.
But this is how it is. And so it's a great place because you can have the mayor of Houston, who eats here almost every week, at one table, and you can have a sanitation worker at the next table wearing his, reflective vest, and it all works. Today there were 2 big oil deals cut here in the dining room at lunch. It's just, that's how it is. It's just what it is. Barbecue, I think, is the most equalizing food that there is.
Oh yeah.
It transcends race, socioeconomic status, gender. It's the most equalizing thing that you can serve. And so when you put a good product in a room, everybody's going to come.
Yeah.
And everybody just sort of gets along.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. It's like
it's really unique.
A little oasis in the middle of the chaos that is life.
I did fine dining cut my teeth on fine dining out of college. And you go like, man, I didn't know there was a good table and a bad table. I didn't know there was a good spot and a bad spot. I didn't know
there's a whole world.
Cream was the wrong temperature for your coffee type of deal. None of that happens here,
So that's great. So it's great but it's great for people to know that if they come, they're not going to have to wait line. They can come sit.
If you come sit down, we're going to get you something. We're going to get you something.
Appetizer and then
something. So you don't have to come and go, oh, crackers. I need to stand in line 45 minutes before I get up there. Maybe they have what I want. Maybe they don't have.
Yeah, they'll be sold out by the time. Yeah.
Get it wrapped up in paper, and then what do? Then I've got to go find a place to sit, and then So here it's more of something of an experience to go through.
And what days of the week you open? You're not open Sundays, is that?
Only Sunday we're closed.
Okay. And what hours?
Every day, 11 to 8. That's what we're open to the public, is 11 to 8.
And that's great because that's an evening option that people don't have.
Now, it's always tough. I don't think people really view barbecue as a nighttime meal. It's more of a gathering lunch. Now we have a certain amount of catering for nighttime, but we're lucky we serve 40, 50 people in the dining room.
So it's not as
it's tough. But we have to be here because we have pits rolling. So I always say it's sort of like that grocery store model. You had people stocking all night, so all you had to do was buy a cashier, and you could be open 24 hours a day.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're open because we have a kitchen functioning, and so that's why we're out here.
Gotcha. But if someone comes in at 6, they can get food.
They get fed. They can get anything. We'll have everything.
Yeah. Well, if they fly into town for a convention or something.
I'm sorry, we're sold out.
Yeah.
Now, we do run out of a couple of things, but there's always another option.
Definitely. No, I think that's important in people's head because I had talked to Daniel Vaughn about how he pre-plans barbecue trips.
Yeah.
And a lot of times he looks at the times. And so if there's a place that's open later in the day, he'll try to hit places earlier
right. Correct.
So for people that are listening to this or watching this, knowing.
And when he comes here, oftentimes it's late. It's 5 or later.
Yeah, so he's it's a strategic in his mind.
And I get it. I understand that. Everyone has a different business model.
Yeah, but that's great. This has been fantastic. Is there anything that people need to know that we haven't talked about? Gosh, I'm so glad Darren connected us because I wanted to talk to you guys for a long time, but I've learned so much more than I
Well,
imagined.
we're history is important to us. It's what we are, and we feel as though we have a responsibility to honor the legacy of Mr. and Mrs. Davis, period. Unfortunately, when they were operating this business, you didn't have people running around giving out accolades. Okay. But they deserve all the credit because they began this. And luckily enough, the Texas Historical Commission has just honored us, or is getting ready. We got a notice that we're being honored. And it's basically to honor the legacy that began in 1935 with Mr. and Mrs. Davis, then went to Jerry Pizzatola, and where we are today. That we are a family-owned business that stuck it out for 87 years. You know, I tell people, they go, wow, that's a long time. I said, well, think about this. We started in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
On the backside of the Great Depression. We've been through World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf Wars, Afghanistan, oil booms, oil busts,
pandemic,
social unrest. We have been through every major event that kids learn about in school. This place has lived it.
Yeah.
That's a little hard. You know, we've seen Houston sort of go from a cow town to an oil boom town to a bus town to where it is now. And we're still in this tin shed on Shepherd Drive, still doing what we do.
Yeah. Oh, that was going to ask you, what do you like? How, I don't know exactly. I don't know where you are. Like, if you were to describe where you are you near things that people can put their mind around, or how do they? I don't know.
We say that we're Greater Heights. The Heights has become sort of
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're on the outskirts of the Heights. Okay. We're between we have River Oaks on one side of us.
Okay.
Westview below us, the Heights above us, and downtown to the east. So we're sort of right in this. Technically, this neighborhood is called West End Houston. It was the West End of Houston.
Okay.
Okay. Memorial Park, which is basically our back door, was called Camp Logan, and that's where the soldiers trained for World War I.
Wow.
And the Davises will tell you that they would watch the soldiers get off the trains and go to Camp Logan, which is the next freeway exit.
Okay.
So this was the west end of town. Nothing was further west. This was the out of town. Everything was downtown or a little south. Nothing was really north of where we are. So this was the outskirts. So we're here where all of Houston grew up around us. And so we're stuck in this little pocket. Now, gentrification is completely changing the neighborhood. And because of that, our taxes have, gone
of course
10,000% because of that. We've gone, Shepherd Drive was a 2-lane, one each way shell road. In the picture, you can see that. So now it's 4 lanes north, 4 lanes south.
Wow.
So, I mean, all this, and we're still here.
Yeah. So if you're staying downtown, how long would it take you to get to you? Like, say someone came into town.
We are halfway between the Galleria and downtown on I-10. We're blocked from I-10.
Okay.
So you can take I-10 coming out of downtown, and you're here in 10 or 15 minutes. You take coming out of the Galleria, coming here 10 or 15 minutes. A lot of people will eat here before an Astros game because they can pop right on the freeway, and the freeway leaves you off right at the stadium. So
perfect.
That it was pretty easy location.
Yeah, sounds like it. Definitely.
Yeah.
If you're taking that trip from the Pacific Ocean on the 10, you could
you get off on Shepherd Drive. And then you just veer a little bit to the right, and there we are.
That's perfect.
And there's a gas station on either side, so you can gas up,
get food, and then keep on going to Florida.
Go on.
Well, this has been so great.
Yeah, you're a good guy.
Thank you so much.